content is king. I don't believe that you can produce too much content because there's all these filters and things like that. And if you put enough out there, more people will see it. Welcome to the Matt Laricy Project. This is a show about all things real estate, business, marketing, and entrepreneurship. Each show consists of myself, Matt Laricy, a member of my team, and a guest. This week, we're still doing something different, and we are updating the coronavirus situation. This is Season 2, Episode 24, COVID-19 Week 5 podcast. So this is the 5th week we have been doing this now, and we're still practicing social distancing. I'm yet to say this correctly, but you get the drill. So there's nobody on the podcast with us today. The date today is Thursday, April 16th. So if what I'm telling you changes tomorrow, I can't predict the future. This virus is an ever-changing thing. It's literally changing by the minute, by the hour. I can't predict the future. And what we've been doing is just reading off the questions that we get. And pretty much these come from about 3 or 4 different sources. It's questions that come to me from our sellers, from our buyers, some that go to my assistants, to our marketing people. And then we literally just ask social media, what questions you have, and we take them and we put them down. And we put them all in one format, and I'm just reading them off. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start these off and answering the questions. First question is, I heard Chase is requiring 20% down on loans. Is that true? And will other banks follow? Yes, Chase did announce that all borrowers are going to be required to put down a minimum of 20%. Essentially what's happening is the economy is getting worse. The unemployment numbers were announced today and they didn't go good. So banks need to say, hey, we don't want to take as much risk. So we're going to do 20% down borrowers only. Are other banks going to follow suit? No clue. Again, can't predict the future. I think a lot of people are going to start tightening up their guidelines while the shelters in places are happening. I really strongly believe we're going to be out of here soon. So I don't think it's going to last that long. But I think for the short term, they're going to try to be a little bit more hard-pressed on who they give loans to. And I think your big banks will probably kind of follow that. The small guys are probably still going to have your looser guidelines. How do you think agents overall are changing their business and attitude with the quarantine? Everybody's going virtual or saying they're going virtual. I'll be interested to see if agents stick with their virtual after COVID. We've always been virtual with virtual presentations, VR, video. I think a lot of other people are going to realize how important it is to be that way. I've been saying that for a long time. Probably one of the main reasons we've lost a lot of listing appointments is they don't like our brochures. And I never understood why anybody would want to carry a brochure, and now how meaningful is having a brochure and how much more powerful is Matterport. But I do think that people are going to change. I think sellers are going to be harder on agents to make sure that they are more virtual. And getting to the attitude, I'd probably say 50% of agents' attitude is cocky, and 50% is the world is ending. It's literally one way or the other. Very few are looking at this realistically. I think it's important to stay positive, but also realistic, and not saying you're the busiest you've ever been, but also saying that it's not good to say that it's the worst market ever. What do you recommend to someone who has been laid off in real estate due to coronavirus? This was probably getting after some of the recent layoffs from the big companies. There's going to be more to come. Open Door yesterday announced 35% layoffs. I'd say go find an employer that respects you and wants to have you and looks at you like an asset. I still think it's crazy that these people are laying off as many people as they are. And somebody commented on this last week that I said 3 months last week. It hasn't even been a month in Chicago. Our lockdown didn't really happen until after St. Patty's Day. And if it's April 16th and St. Patrick's Day is March 17th, we're not even at a month, and companies are laying off a third of their employees. So I tell those employees, keep your head up. In a matter of weeks, I feel the economy will come back. I could be completely wrong. But I think, we're going to go back to businesses, not business as usual, but, we're going to start spending money again, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity. So, use this time to start interviewing and show what your strengths are. Do you think JB will extend our shelter in place? I think we probably will. New York this morning announced they're going to May 15th, and so did some other East Coast states. Now, they got slammed. They got hit way harder than Chicago did. I mean, it's terrible what's happening out there, and I think I'm selfishly hoping we get like a slow release. So like maybe they'll extend, non-essential business to the 15th, but maybe allow some more restaurants and some other stuff to kind of open up to maybe get back to somewhat normal. Again, could be wrong. They can announce this in 5 minutes. It's going until June, but selfishly, I'm hoping it gets, we get to go back soon. Do you think masks will be a regular part of open houses and showings post-coronavirus? I do think. I think people, there's probably going to be a good quarter of the population that's going to be super scared to leave their house once this is kind of like quote-unquote lifted because, let's face it, just when they say, hey, it's time to go out, not that much is really going to change with this virus being out there. So I do think some people are going to feel a little bit more comfortable. And I think that some people forever are just going to wear masks. They're just going to, this is going to scar these people, and that's what they're going to do for the rest of their lives. What's the biggest deal you've closed during the shelter in place? Somebody on my team, Matt Piazza, shout out, we call him Pizza, closed the sale for $2.2 million this week. So that's a huge sale. It was one of the biggest sales in the city this week. We're still closing deals. Still, same is to be said. We're still selling one property a day. It's been very consistent. We're also losing a deal every couple of days as well, mostly due to layoffs. But things are still moving in the market. Let's see. What is the most positive piece of coronavirus-related news you've heard during the past week? I don't think there's anything that's like comes to my head that I've read. I will tell you, I do think it's great what all of our hospital staffs and our police and fire department are doing, that they're out there, on the front lines risking their life. I don't think I've really read about that in the news, but I do think that's positive thinking and great to hear that, these people are doing that for us. Any favorite meals you've been making over quarantine? Every night I've been cooking, minus one night a week where we get pizza. Southside pizza, which is phenomenal for anybody out there that has never had Southside pizza. It's like a cracker pizza. Or actually they call it tavern-style pizza, which is phenomenal. Thursdays is probably my favorite cooking day. Today just so happens to be Thursdays. It's a Taco Thursdays, not Taco Tuesdays. Tonight is going to be steak tacos. I'll post a picture on Instagram. It's going to be phenomenal. What is the most common reason you've lost deals due to Corona? Just answer this. Mostly job layoffs. At this point, it's not people panicking. It's just people getting let go from their job. Do you think commercial or residential will have a bigger impact from coronavirus? I think commercial is going to get hit way worse than residential in Chicago. Every city's different. Real estate is extremely local. So in Chicago, I'm not really seeing residential get like slammed, but I have to imagine commercial is. The retail numbers have been announced. They've been talking about how, it's the worst quarter or month or whatever it's been for retail stores, and obviously restaurants are getting crushed. So, I'm sure as a result, these commercial real estate's going to get slammed. Time will tell. It's still a little bit early to see who's going to be worse, who's going to be the winner of the worst. But I'm going to have to go on a limb and say I think commercial is going to be way worse than residential. How long do you think mortgage rates will remain low? They've been popping up lately, so I don't know if I'd say they're like super low, but I think as the economy gets worse, the rates are going to go up because it's a higher risk. I think when we go back to work, I think the rates will actually drop. So I actually think the rates are going to get better once we get out of the shelter in place. Have any of your sellers been willing to drop drastically in price to get a deal closed during shelter in place? That's actually a really good question. Essentially, you're wondering if anybody's like, what's the dollar it's going to take to sell this place? I'm not seeing anybody really give away their place. A lot of times when sellers list, I always give them two options. I say, this is the price that the property's worth and it'll take to move it. And here's a second price if you want to push the envelope. During the spring season, a lot of sellers are going to say, let's push the envelope. I'm not in a rush. I don't want to leave any money on the table, blah, blah, blah. I've had a lot of sellers now drop down to that. This is the price it would take to sell. and a lot of them have sold because of that. But I'm not seeing anybody say like, we're like, hey, it would take 400,000 to sell, and now they're like, let's ask 350. I'm not seeing anything close to that. I am seeing sellers maybe accept like 10,000 less than they normally would want to take, but no crazy numbers have happened, at least at this point as of April 16th. What does it mean that the federal government put a moratorium on foreclosure? So they're pretty much just trying to help eliminate the rise of foreclosure. So there's mortgage, forgiveness programs, where they're essentially tacking the month on if you miss a month now, or forbearance program, not forgiveness, on the back end of it. So you're just going to pay more interest on it. So honestly, I feel a lot of people are more nervous about the future of the market. So they're kicking the can down the road, so to speak. So they're delaying that mortgage payment to have more cash in reserves. Also, a lot of people don't have a lot of money in savings. But the reality is, like, these forbearances, there's going to be a large amount of interest on there. So, honestly, if you got the money, you want to pay it. Can you still purchase foreclosures at this time? Of course. In downtown Chicago, the markets we work, there really isn't any. I know of like one on the market, and they can't meet the reserve. It's a place on Bissell. I get like 4,000 calls on it. But, if one's up, you could get it. But foreclosures, you have to remember, a lot of people have been asking about like how many foreclosures coming in, blah, blah, blah. If the market is bad today, that doesn't mean foreclosures come tomorrow. Usually you got to miss like 3, 4, 5 months of payments before the property starts going into foreclosure. Then the foreclosure process has to happen. The bank's got to take it over. Then it's going to go on the market. We call that shadow inventory sometimes. That was a big thing that happened between like 10 and 12. We're not going to, if there are going to be a lot of foreclosures, honestly, like you'll find them in like January to February of next year. We're nowhere near there. And since there are all these forbearance programs, like, again, if we get out of the shelter in place soon, I don't see that many foreclosures coming. Now, I'm not saying there's not going to be some, okay? So you're not saying like, oh, Matt said there's not going to be any foreclosures. I'm saying there's not going to be as many as people anticipate if we go back to work soon. Would you recommend to a client to purchase a home without touring it in person? So do I recommend you to do it virtually? Yes. Honestly, if you've been out of your house before and looked at places, I think it's totally fine to make offers sight unseen. You know what it kind of looks like. There's Matterport, there's video tours. You get a good sense of it. I don't think you should feel uncomfortable making it all. Do I expect a lot of business to close completely or not recover? Oh, do I like businesses? It should be. So do I think a lot of businesses will close? Yes. People are getting crushed. Restaurants, they said 110,000 may never come back or something like that. I read an article about. That could be wrong, give or take a couple. But people forget that the economy is like a domino effect. If the restaurants all close, then the people who make products for the restaurants are going to go out of business, and the warehouses that make the products for them are going to close. So I think we're going to see a lot of businesses close, and I think the closures are going to be more prominent the longer the shelter in place happens. But again, remember, if we go back to work soon, these businesses will be able to kind of come back. They would have only lost maybe 1 or 2 months revenue, which is devastating since most people live paycheck to paycheck and most businesses, go paycheck to paycheck. But, I think we'll get through it, and I don't think we will see as many businesses close if we get back to work soon. You are out in the field. Are you worried about catching the virus? So am I personally worried? I probably should be more nervous than I am. To be frank, I don't really think about it that much. We're taking precautions. I'm not meeting randos in the field that like I've never met before. If we're going to meet somebody new, they have to have this waiver signed. We make them get all the stuff up front, pre-approvals, proof of funds, all that. And then it's a calculated risk. At the end of the day, I could get corona by sitting here and drinking this coffee cup, and the person who had Starbucks handed me the cup could have it too. So, I try not to live my life in fear. To be frank, I don't really try to think about it that much. We're just out here and, we're trying to limit our exposure as much as possible. What has been one positive thing you have gained from quarantine? More family time, etc. Honestly, I feel like I'm seeing my family less during this time than more. And I think it's because the market is more challenging and difficult, so I'm working harder to try to make sure that we don't close, that we don't lose business, that we don't have to have any layoffs. I think a lot of people are using this as an excuse to be lazier. I'm not saying that everybody is, but I'm noticing in our own business that I feel like a lot of people are using this as a good excuse to be able to watch Netflix more often than they should. I think I have a different mentality, and I think the positive I am seeing out of this is that I'm trying to improve my business. Just like anybody, I have weak spots, and there's things I need to improve on as a person as well, and I'm trying to think of what those are and pivot and get to the long-term projects that we've been wanting to do, and I think that's a positive approach that we're taking from this. What do you tell sellers who want to do a drastic price drop to just try and sell during these crazy times? We just answered that. What is the benefit of listing my home during the lockdown versus waiting to list until it's over? Honestly, I've answered this, 2 out of the last 5 of these now about, list now or wait. I would list now. Just this week, activities picked up. This weekend, I feel, is probably triple as busy as the last weekend. Now, again, I'm not saying we're slammed. I'm just saying we are busier than the last couple weeks I've seen. I think people are starting to get sick of sitting inside. I think the weather getting better helps with that as well. But there's not as much competition. You are not competing with as many people. We have gotten in a lot of multiple bids this week. I'm in 3 of them literally right this second. And I think that if you list now, you're not going to deal with as many people out there trying to sell. And the minute the shelter in place gets, back in place or gets lifted, we're probably going to see 50% increase in inventory. I know I have a ton of inventory just waiting to get listed, and I'm one person. I can't imagine how many other people are out there. And in the pocket listing game, we're seeing a lot of people post that a lot, so I know there's a lot of inventory to come. How fast do you expect people to bounce back and have our business go back to normal when this is all over? I think it'll be a pretty quick bounce back in the sense that I think people will get out there more. I think we're going to see people start looking. And I know it's crazy to say that, hey, what's going to be the difference between today, April 16th, and May 1st? I think it's just going to be a mentality thing that people are going to feel more comfortable about it. And there's going to still be 50% of the population that thinks like, hey, a place is worth $500, and because the coronavirus happened that I could get it for $400. But I will tell you, I think those people are going to learn really quickly that type of price drop didn't happen, and they're going to get outbid 3, 4, maybe 5 times, or they're going to see that place that they liked a lot go, and they're going to see another place they liked a lot, and that's going to sell, and they're going to see another place they like a lot, and that's going to sell, and then they're going to realize, like, wait a second, the market isn't as bad as I thought it was. And that's what we're going to see, and I think once people start to realize that the world's not ending, the market's going to bounce back quicker. The whole thing and the whole reason why the market's going to get worse when the shelter in place gets lifted is everybody believes it's bad. If everybody has confidence in the marketplace, goes out, spends, goes back to work, the market will bounce back quicker. I can't predict what people's mentality are going to be. I have a feeling people are going to bounce back pretty positive, but time is to tell. How would you feel if showings stayed virtual forever? I mean, I'd like it and I wouldn't like it. I mean, it's cool to be able to sell places virtually. We've always done this. And I said this 2 podcasts ago. I mean, we sold more places virtual in 16 and 17 than we are today. I do think, and I said this last week, is I do think people are going to use the virtual feature to narrow down their lists. I think people won't look as many. I think the days of people looking at 100 places are gone. I always thought looking at 100 places was a little aggressive as it was, but I do think that it's going to help eliminate a lot of options that you thought wouldn't be there. And I think it's been, whenever you look at businesses, they say one of the biggest things people have is the learning curve. Is like, okay, this is a great idea, but to teach somebody to do it is one of the biggest challenges you'll have. And to get there is just going to take too long. I think this whole coronavirus experience has sped that up. So like, even though I've been saying we've been using Matterport for 4+ years, I don't think more than 50% of the population even knew what Matterport was. Now, I think most people know what it is because they're using it so often. And I think because of that, people are going to notice it online. Like we always put in our first line, like take a 3D virtual tour. I have a feeling nobody reads that. But I think nowadays, moving forward, people are going to say, hey, they got a 3D tour. Let's look at that first. So I don't think virtual showings will take over completely. I do think it's going to be a bigger trend that people are going to be following more to help eliminate and narrow things down. Do you still require team members to wear suits for showings right now? We answered this last week, suits and ties. The only time they're not allowed to wear a suit and tie is if they're not working. If they're not working, they should still be in a suit and tie at the grocery store just to keep up the image. But otherwise, yeah, suit and tie. The coronavirus doesn't affect the way you look to other people. You own some properties in Chicago that you rent out. Did you give your tenants a small break or on rent? Did they ask you for one? No, I did not give anybody a break, nor did I offer it, nor do I think I should. If I take a break or I offer them a break, I'll lose more money on it. We're not very profitable. I think I make like maybe $50 a month off every property. And if the, assessments or taxes go up even a tiny bit, I'm in the negative as it is. So, all of our properties were paid in April. Is that going to happen in May? Who knows? From what I've read online, most people did pay their rents, but again, this rent isn't forgiven completely. You're going to pay it back at some point. And I do know times are tough, but that kind of brings me back to the point of the domino thing. Like if the tenants stop paying the rent, the landlord may not be able to afford their mortgage. So then they got to go back to the bank, and then the bank, isn't getting income. So that causes a lot more problems. So I don't know why people are encouraging people not to pay the rents. But it will be a very big problem if this lasts a lot longer. Let's see. How do you deal with sellers who are getting showing requests but declining them? What do you advise? We have a lot of listings where our sellers just don't want to do showings, or they just feel like at that moment they don't want to show the next day. They're just not maybe feeling up for it. Not that they're sick, they may just not want it. This is a awkward, weird situation that we're in, and we can't force anybody to do anything. So if they don't want to do it, it is what it is. I encourage people to show their property as much as possible. I really think anybody who is looking at a property today will buy a place today. I am not seeing any tire kickers out there. I am not seeing anybody that's like, let's we're bored at home. Let's go take a look at a property. Normally in April, I always tell people if we get 5 showings in April, 2 of those people right off the bat are just looking at places to either brag to some guy or girl that they're looking at places, or they just think it's cool to go look at places, but they're not going to buy. So 3 of the 5 are normally serious buyers. You get 5 showing requests right now, all 5 of those people are going to buy a place in the next week or 2. Those are the people going out. So I encourage my sellers like, hey, if we get a request, you do anything possible to get it done. However, again, because it's a weird situation, we're going to show if they don't want to show the property, there's nothing we can do. We know you like to cook. What have been some staples for you to make during quarantine? So another cooking question. I told you what my favorite meal to make is. I try to have a different routine every night of what I'm going to cook. I send the menu out to the family for the week of what we're making and what to expect. Definitely some staples in there, steaks, tacos. I try to keep it healthy but fun as well. And I think, for me at least, cooking every night is a relaxing moment that kind of helps me settle my day down. So let's see here. If you're a seller that is in the healthcare industry and being exposed to positive patients, should you disclose this to buyers coming through your home? That's a great question. I would say yes. We don't have any sellers that are doctors that are in the COVID. We do have buyers, and I'm encouraging my buyers to wait if they are by them. But I think you have a fiduciary responsibility, or just a right to be able to tell the agents and the people that are coming through the house if, just so you know, if you're looking at my property, I've been exposed. There could be people who are pregnant or older coming through the house, and I would hope to think that sellers that are in that position are telling their agents, and the agents are relaying it to the people that are coming. This, as much as we want to sell places, we still want to make sure people are safe, and I hope people are conveying that. When do you think we'll see an increase of inventory come back to the market? Honestly, the minute the shelter in place is lifted, I think there's going to be a crazy amount. I'm going to go on a limb and say 50% more inventory. That's how much I think is going to happen. I think it's going to be overwhelming. I think you're going to see so much come on that you're going to miss some stuff because so much have hit. It's going to remind me, the craziness of how much is going to come on the market is going to be just as crazy as when they announced the shelter in place. The minute they announced the shelter in place was happening, it was like the sky was falling, all hell broke loose, deals died left and right, the stock market crashed, blah, blah, blah. The minute the shelter in place is lifted, I think the stock market's going to do very well. I think we're going to see everything hit the market. I think multiple bids are going to be going crazy. Now, I'm not saying that's going to last forever and it's going to be this great market, but I think we are going to see a really quick rush to the market in a real quick rush of multiple bids, because there are a lot of buyers who have been sitting around doing nothing, thumbing through Zillow, Redfin, Trulia, Realtor.com, the MLS, etc., and they haven't seen what they liked, but all of a sudden 50% more inventory hits the market, and boom, these people want to buy. Are there any hobbies you have formed during the pandemic? Nope. I've said this before. I'll say it again. My life has not really changed. I've stuck to my same routine. I'm waking up a little bit later than normal, but for the most part, I'm doing what I do all day, every day. I am not going to break my routine. So there's really nothing that I'm doing different that I'm able to even enjoy a new hobby. I mean, I'm working harder now than I've ever worked to try to get more business. So if I have a hobby, it would be work harder. That's it. That's my new hobby, to work even harder and be smarter about trying to get more business. Do you think this pandemic will become an issue with completing new construction homes? In Chicago, no. The construction workers are still working, and they're going to continue to work. So I don't think it's going to be a terrible problem. I do think there are some places that are delayed, and I think that's going to cause some delays. But I saw in New York, a lot of big project sites were shut down. I saw in Miami there was. So I'm sure in those areas, yeah. I mean, if they shut down stuff, you're not going to have as many people. There's going to be a lot more delays. But in Chicago, we're not seeing many sites get shut down. Now, if JB decides to shut down construction, then yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more stuff. But as of today, April 16th, construction workers are an essential business. They're out there working. We're not seeing that many delays. What about a follow-up question? Didn't see this part. Supplies on being on hold. Stores where supplies are bought, closed down. Workers not wanting to get sick. Good question. Didn't think about that. Yeah, I guess maybe you could get a delay if they wanted like a certain cabinet from like Italy, and the Italian, it's shut down and nobody's shipping the stuff. But I haven't heard any of that. We do quite a bit of new construction. I'm buying new construction myself, and in fact, I got a note a couple of days ago saying that they pushed up my closing, not back, and I'm trying to push it back. Last thing I want to do is close early on my own personal property, but I'm not seeing this become a big problem as of April 16th. Have I been wearing a mask and gloves everywhere? I actually have not. I do have a mask. Some buildings do require us to wear a mask to come in. Some buyers or some sellers make us wear a mask to show their properties, so we have one in case of that. But otherwise, I'm not wearing it unless I technically have to. That's it. Those are the questions. Oh, we had one more. A certain agent asked if I would show his properties in the UIC Little Italy area. If we have a buyer, we will show it. So we will do everything possible. I didn't want to forget that one. It's actually at the bottom underneath of my closing here. But otherwise, this is it. These are pretty good amount of questions, not as many as we've had the past couple weeks. I feel like we're kind of in a position where it's almost like COVID-5 awkwardness. Like people aren't really stir crazy anymore. They're not like pandemic anymore. It's just kind of like we want to get out of here, but I don't know what to do. It's like you're in that awkward phase. So the best thing I could tell you guys to close is just stay positive. I think this whole thing's going to turn around. I think our business, real estate business, is going to be fine. I think for everybody out there that's thinking like, hey, real estate's going to plummet, all this stuff. I mean, inventory. There's not going to be enough inventory. Just watch. There's a simple rule of supply and demand. And if there's no supply and there's demand, the prices aren't going to drop. So stay positive out there. Make sure you subscribe to these. Hit the little bell. Leave us some questions of what you want us to answer next week. We will answer anything that comes our way. So leave it. Thanks for listening to the Matt Laricy Project. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast, follow us on Instagram, and like us on Facebook.